Pete has had some first-hand lessons on how keeping your mind on task and eyes on task can impact your safety. What's equally important for Pete to understand, though, is that eyes on task and mind on task can both be critical to avoiding mistakes, like moving into the line of fire or losing your balance, traction, or grip. Hey, what happened to you?
I decided to go skating this afternoon at work.
You're kidding me, right? Come on.
I was in the production area. I met up with an oil spill and ended up in a crumpled heap on the floor.
Oh, you didn't see the oil?
Yeah, when I was falling.
So you weren't thinking about what you were doing, I guess.
Actually, I was thinking about what I was going to do next.
You know, the more people I talk to that are injured, the more I'm amazed at how I hear I just wasn't thinking, or I didn't even see it.
I thought my habits were improving. You know, eyes on task, mind on task. There's always a lot going on the plant floor, so I was looking around.
Yeah, but not at the floor.
Who looks at the floor? I didn't intend to slip and put on a skating exhibition.
Well, remember, there are 4 critical areas that can get you hurt. 2 of them you've already mentioned. Eyes not on task and mind not on task.
And the other 2 are moving into the line of fire and losing your balance, traction, or grip.
Well, it's interesting, though, how the first 2 mistakes can usually result in the second 2. You get into the habit of not watching or thinking about what you're doing. You can end up moving unknowingly into the path of some hazardous energy, or losing your balance, traction, or grip.
You know, a lot of the overall safety training at my plant is about line of fire.
Well, think about it. You could be dealing with enormous amounts of hazardous energy. Chemical, mechanical, electrical, all with the potential for some pretty serious injury.
Yeah, but that's what engineering controls, barriers, and PPE are for, right?
Yeah, but it's not as though those things give you a magic shield, you know? Both thinking about and looking for potential hazards are equally important in avoiding line of fire injuries. There are actually 5 factors you need to consider in line of fire situations. First, there's the direction, speed, and force of the hazardous energy. That's a given. And the best way of dealing with that, if you can, is eliminating it altogether, like shutting off the power. But if you don't do that, you can contain the energy or put up screens, guards, or barriers. And when appropriate, you can wear personal protective equipment. One other factor to consider with line of fire is your body position relative to the path of the hazardous energy.
What amazes me are the people who walk right out in front of traffic before it's stopped. Pedestrians may have the right of way, but suppose a driver isn't looking or paying attention.
We all know that happens. And another thing about line of fire is when the direction of the hazard can't be predicted.
Well, that could be anything from a chemical splash to flying bits of metal from a grinding wheel to a potential explosion.
Exactly. And again, you've got to be thinking about those things to avoid them. You know, speed and force are important concepts too. A small sliver of metal may not weigh much, but if it's hurled from a rotating blade, it might be moving at such a high speed it could cause serious injury, even if you're 60 feet away. That's why barriers like screens and guards and personal protective equipment are so important.
It'd be tough to move faster than that piece of metal coming at you.
Probably the biggest problem with line of fire is when people think they can get out of the way in time. They see the risk determined by their ability or coordination rather than just pure luck, and may accept a higher level of risk than they would in a situation they can't influence.
Kind of the way some people view flying versus driving. Unless you're the pilot, there's not much you can do to affect the risk. Driving, on the other hand, is influenced mostly by your own ability and the chance of not making a mistake.
So statistically, even though it may be safer to fly than drive, people are willing to risk driving because it's a situation they think they can control.
All right, but if they make even a small error, like being distracted just for a second.
Exactly. And anyone can make one of those mistakes. You know, speaking of mistakes, while someone may move into a line of fire deliberately, no one loses their balance on purpose. These accidents almost always happen because the person wasn't looking where they were going or didn't have their mind on what they were doing. And just like the other critical areas, rushing, frustration, fatigue, and complacency increase the chances you're going to make another one of those mistakes.
You start getting tired during a long drive and then lose traction on an overpass because you don't think about the dropping temperature.
Anything that obstructs the view of your footing is definitely a problem. You could easily trip and fall. or pull a back muscle, or twist your ankle. And there's always the potential of a collision with someone else. So if you're going to be carrying large or heavy items, always check the path or route first. Errors involving traction are often those that occur on the road. And when a car or truck loses traction, it's no simple matter to stop. You're likely to skid, and how far you skid will depend on how fast you're going. It's like this. If one car is moving at 20 miles per hour and another at 40 miles per hour, and both begin to skid, the faster car won't just skid twice as far.
No, it'll skid 4 times as far. But at 60 miles per hour, it will skid 9 times as far.
That's why, if you think the road might be slippery, it's best to check your brakes at the first clear spot rather than waiting until you begin to lose traction.
It's a little late then. So how do you keep from losing your balance, traction, or grip?
Well, first think of all the things that can hurt you. Items on steps or in walkways, oil or water spills, and dangerous road conditions. Use 3-point contact on ladders and hand railings on stairs to prevent falls. Avoid using a pinch grip on things that might slip easily. Put a hand underneath the item instead. To learn more about critical errors involving line of fire and loss of balance, traction, or grip, turn to your workbook for unit number 3. When you've finished, come back to the tape and review a few scenarios related to the topic.